One issue that has slipped beneath the media radar is the U.S. decision to resume the sale of offensive weapons to Saudi Arabia. These weapons were cut off about 3 years ago because the Saudis were using them to relentlessly bomb the people of Yemen. Why is the U.S. resuming these sales? Well, because the Saudis want them. It's part of their demands if they're going to normalize relations with Israel, something the U.S. has been pushing hard for. I think the U.S. also wants to nix the peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran that was brokered by the Chinese last year. And they want Saudi cooperation in countering any Iranian attacks on Israel. But Saudi Arabia is one of the most repressive countries in the world. I wrote a book about this a few years ago. You know why U.S. policymakers never criticize elections in Saudi Arabia like they criticize the elections in neighboring Iran? Because there are no elections in Saudi Arabia. It is one of the last remaining absolute monarchies in the world. Do you know why there are no protests in Saudi Arabia in solidarity with Palestinians? Because they would be thrown in prison. People have been thrown away for years in prison just for posts on social media. But you don't have to believe me. Let's look at the latest U.S. government country report on Saudi Arabia. A government of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearance, torture, life-threatening prison conditions, arbitrary arrest and detention, lack of an independent judiciary, punishment of family members for alleged offenses by their relatives, censorship, violence against journalists, serious restrictions on internet freedom, on religious freedom, freedom of movement, including the right to even leave the country, bans on independent trade unions, violence against gay and transgender persons, excessive use of the death penalty, and on and on. Again, this is the U.S. government talking about its great ally, the Saudis. More weapons to Saudi Arabia will only strengthen this repressive regime and increase the regional conflict. Oh, and of course, it will also increase the profits of the weapons companies like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and that in turn will increase the campaign coffers of our politicians. So yeah, let's send more offensive weapons to Saudi Arabia and continue to tout ourselves as defenders of the, quote, free world.